A massive limestone mountain in southern China was violently split in half by heavy explosives for one terrifying reason. Engineers had to anchor a structure over a 600-meter drop where wind gusts move faster than a bullet train. If the structural alignment is off by even a millimeter, the entire mountain wall will fracture and collapse into the river canyon below. This brutal engineering war against gravity forced designers to build a living neural network directly into the rock walls. Join us and let's discover why China split a mountain in half to build this insane bridge. Let's go.
Number 13. Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge. Explosive charges blasted massive amounts of ancient rock from a vertical cliff in Guizhou province to achieve what engineers called a structural suicide mission. Workers sliced a massive chasm directly through the core of a limestone mountain because no flat ground existed to support the world's highest suspension bridge. This violent cutting was the only way to anchor a 22,000-ton steel grid across a vertical drop deep enough to swallow the Empire State Building twice over. Geological instability meant heavy cranes could never reach the site, forcing crews to engineer a custom aerial cableway that operates like a high-altitude railway suspended on thin wires over the void. Every single piece of steel is tracked in real time using satellite navigation networks to combat the violent wind currents that constantly attempt to twist the metal out of alignment. If these components shift even slightly during assembly, the leverage exerted on the split mountain face could trigger a catastrophic structural failure. The entire project serves as a brutal demonstration of absolute dominance over geographical barriers that isolated human populations for eras. Navigating this canyon used to require 2 grueling hours of driving along treacherous mountain passes, but this radical cutting of the earth reduces that journey to precisely 120 seconds, forcing travelers to stare directly into a massive void that hides an even deeper physiological trap.
Number 12. Huajiang Canyon Glass Elevator. 625 meters above the churning riverbed, a transparent glass platform juts out directly into the empty space to exploit the terrifying commercial value of pure human vertigo. Designers turned this massive infrastructure project into an extreme tourist trap by installing a vertical glass elevator inside one of the concrete support towers, creating a continuous 800-meter drop that ranks as one of the longest rides on the planet. Visitors enter a double-decker cafeteria built directly inside the upper hollows of the suspension tower, where they look through panoramic windows at a lethal drop that would take a falling object nearly 12 seconds to hit the bottom. Directly beneath the active traffic lanes, a reinforcing steel catwalk features solid glass floor panels, forcing anyone brave enough to walk across it to confront a naked view of the jagged rocks far below. Extreme adrenaline seekers find a specialized platform extending from the bridge structure to host the highest commercial bungee jump in human history, eclipsing all previous global records by a massive margin. This artificial playground turns an otherwise barren mountain gorge into a highly profitable landmark that generates massive tourism revenue for a previously impoverished region. The ultimate goal is to convert an isolated engineering miracle into a global capital for extreme sports, forcing people to pay for the privilege of facing absolute terror. Yet this terrifying drop is not the only place where engineers used radical methods to cross an abyss.
Only 1% of people know the dark truth behind what we are about to show you next. If you want to be part of the few who actually know what's happening in the world, subscribe and leave a like right now. Done? Look at this.
Number 11. Sidu River Bridge. Rockets fired high-velocity military cables across a massive 3,000-foot-wide chasm because the surrounding topography was too steep for any conventional pilot line installation. This extreme method marked the first time in history that explosive rocketry was utilized to initiate the construction of a suspension bridge, spanning an abyss deep enough to comfortably fit a 90-story skyscraper beneath its traffic lanes. The sheer depth of the gorge meant that any mistake during the initial cable pull would drop miles of heavy steel wire into an inaccessible jungle valley, destroying millions of dollars of equipment instantly. Engineers designed a unique, thin steel truss system that minimizes weight while maximizing aerodynamic stability against the unpredictable thermal currents rising from the riverbed below.
This fragile-looking ribbon of steel connects two completely isolated mountain communities, transforming what was once a multi-day trek through lethal terrain into a routine drive. The psychological impact on drivers is immense, as the lack of visible central supports creates the unsettling illusion of floating completely unprotected in midair. Maintaining this isolated structure requires specialized maintenance crews to walk along narrow external cables with nothing but a safety harness separating them from a fatal plunge. This constant battle against environmental hazards forces engineers to push limits elsewhere, constructing massive vertical transit systems directly onto the faces of outdoor cliffs.
Number 10. Bi-long elevator. Massive steel tracks bolted directly into a vertical quartz sandstone cliff face support a triple structure that completely redefines vertical transport. This mechanical monster rises over 1,000 feet above the valley floor, transport guests up the sheer precipice of a mountain that inspired fictional alien landscapes. The engineering team had to drill deep anchor shafts into ancient, unstable stone while suspended from ropes hundreds of feet in the air, battling intense mountain winds and seismic tremors. 3 double-deck glass elevator cars carry up to 50 passengers each at speeds that blur the line between a theme park ride and critical regional infrastructure. The primary structural challenge was ensuring that the massive elevator shafts would not shear off the cliff face under the immense weight of the steel frames and daily passenger loads. Heavy internal dampening systems neutralize the natural swaying of the rock columns, preventing catastrophic mechanical jams during high-velocity ascents. This controversial structure allows thousands of tourists to access pristine mountain ridges in seconds, replacing grueling multi-hour climbs with a rapid vertical ascent that triggers immediate motion sickness. The sheer visual impact of a modern metallic tower clawing its way up an ancient natural wall highlights a relentless drive to conquer vertical space. This same obsession with utilizing dangerous vertical voids has driven architects to build massive structures deep inside abandoned industrial chasms.
Number 9. Intercontinental Shanghai Wonderland. Abandoned industrial wastelands transformed into an upside-down architectural marvel when designers decided to build a luxury skyscraper deep inside a forgotten 88-meter-deep quarry. This subterranean complex clings to the sheer rock walls of a flooded pit, featuring 16 floors that plunge directly below ground level into the dark recesses of the earth. 2 entire levels are completely submerged at the bottom of a custom-built artificial lake, where guests stare through thick acrylic windows into a simulated marine ecosystem instead of the open sky. The construction process required unprecedented structural waterproofing and foundational anchoring to prevent the surrounding cliff walls from collapsing inward under intense hydrostatic pressure. Engineers developed a specialized reverse elevator system to transport heavy machinery downward into the pit, reversing standard skyscraper logistics where materials are lifted upward. A massive artificial waterfall cascades down the center of the quarry face, serving as both a visual centerpiece and a functional cooling system for the enclosed subterranean microclimate. This radical reuse of a discarded industrial scar demonstrates how modern engineering can turn a hazardous geographic void into an ultra-luxury sanctuary. The absolute isolation from the outside world creates an eerie atmosphere where the traditional horizon is replaced by a massive ring of jagged stone. This mastery of enclosed vertical drops contrasts sharply with projects designed to span wide valleys.
Number 8. Miao Viaduct. Dense cloud layers completely submerge the tallest bridge pillars on Earth, leaving only the white steel masts piercing through the white mist like the sails of a ghost ship. This massive French engineering achievement spans a wide valley at a height that surpasses the Eiffel Tower, utilizing a delicate cable-stayed design to minimize structural footprint. 7 concrete piers support a continuous 8,000-foot steel deck, requiring specialized hydraulic jacks to slowly push the pre-assembled roadway across the open space from both sides of the valley.
The immense height of the pillars required custom self-climbing concrete molds that rose centimeter by centimeter over several months of continuous pouring. Designers shaped each pillar with a distinct narrow waist to maximize flexibility, allowing the concrete to absorb the massive thermal expansion and contraction caused by extreme seasonal temperature shifts. High-velocity winds racing through the valley present a constant threat of structural twisting, forcing aerodynamic specialists to install specialized windshields along the entire length of the driving lanes. This sweeping highway completely eliminated a notorious regional traffic bottleneck, allowing international travelers to cruise smoothly across a massive geographic barrier. The transition from solid earth to a thin ribbon of asphalt suspended above the clouds provides a surreal driving experience. This same desire to create a transparent crossing over a terrifying drop led to the creation of a fragile walkway.
Number 7. Zhangjiajie Glass Bridge. Cracking sounds echoing across a canyon floor were once a terrifying joke played on tourists walking across the longest and highest glass-bottomed bridge in the world. This transparent walkway spans a massive drop between two mountain cliffs, using 99 giant panels of triple-layered tempered glass to give visitors the terrifying sensation of walking on thin air. Before opening to the public, officials staged a massive public demonstration where a heavy sledgehammer was smashed repeatedly into the glass panels, followed by driving a loaded passenger vehicle across the fractured surface to prove its structural redundant nature. The bridge design utilizes a highly advanced aerodynamic profile to counteract the violent wind vortices that naturally form inside narrow mountain gorges. Steel cables are anchored deep into the surrounding stone, using massive concrete blocks buried underground, ensuring the entire structure can withstand the weight of 800 people at once. The visual impact of hundreds of people appearing to float over a green abyss attracts millions of visitors, turning the fear of falling into a highly lucrative global spectacle. Walking across this transparent span forces the human brain to fight its natural survival instincts, as every step reveals a lethal drop directly between the feet. This artificial path over the void is a modern evolution of the ancient lethal trails carved by hand into the sides of holy mountains.
Number 6. Mount Hua Plank Walk. Wooden planks barely wide enough for 2 human feet are bolted directly into a vertical granite cliff face thousands of feet above a fatal mountain valley. This ancient path is widely considered one of the most dangerous hiking trails on Earth, requiring visitors to wear a mandatory safety harness attached to a single steel cable running along the rock wall. The trail consists of rough wooden boards supported by rusty iron pegs driven directly into the sheer stone precipice, with no handrails or nets to catch anyone who loses their footing. Hikers must press their bodies flat against the cold stone face to allow oncoming traffic to squeeze past them on the narrow ledge, where a single misstep means an instantaneous fall into the clouds below. The path was originally constructed centuries ago by hermits seeking absolute isolation, using primitive hand tools to carve small toe holes into the smooth vertical rock. Modern reinforcing chains have been added to provide a modicum of security, yet the psychological terror of looking down at a completely unobstructed drop remains unmitigated. The extreme physical challenge and constant threat of sudden death attract thrill seekers from every corner of the globe, turning an ancient religious pilgrimage into an ultimate test of mental endurance. This raw, unyielding confrontation with a sheer vertical drop represents a primitive struggle against gravity that modern bridges attempt to tame through massive scales.
Number 5. Royal Gorge Bridge. Over 1,000 feet above the Arkansas River, a historic wooden deck suspension bridge hangs precariously between 2 sheer granite cliffs in the heart of Colorado. This legendary structure held the record as the highest bridge in the world for nearly 70 years, built in less than 6 months during the late 1920s by a team of brave steelworkers.
The entire floor of the bridge is constructed from over 12,000 individual wooden planks, creating a loud rhythmic clattering sound as vehicles drive slowly across the narrow span. Two massive steel cables composed of thousands of individual wires provide the primary support, anchored deep into the solid rock walls of a canyon carved over millions of years. The narrowness of the gorge amplifies the wind currents, causing the entire wooden deck to sway noticeably during storms and forcing closures to protect visitors from extreme turbulence. Unlike modern concrete megastructures, this historic span feels fragile and alive, vibrating constantly under the weight of foot traffic and offering a direct connection to early engineering history. The sheer vertical walls drop completely straight down into a raging river, creating a stark visual boundary between the safety of the rocky rim and the chaos of the empty air. This historic American achievement set a precedent for suspending human transport over impossible drops, a concept that Asian engineers would later push to a much more transparent extreme.
Number 4. Tianmen Mountain Glass Skywalk. Sheer, transparent glass pathways wrap tightly around the vertical cliffs of a legendary mountain peak, offering an unobstructed view of a vertical drop that triggers instant paralysis. This terrifying skywalk is constructed from solid glass panels supported by a reinforced concrete cantilever system anchored directly into the vertical stone wall, thousands of feet above the winding valley below. Tourists are required to wear special cloth shoe covers to prevent scratching the glass surface, ensuring that every visitor has a perfectly clear view of the fatal drop beneath their feet. The narrow walkway follows the natural contours of the mountain face, forcing people to navigate sharp corners where the ground completely disappears from sight. The extreme altitude means that the path is frequently enveloped in dense fog, creating the disorienting illusion of walking through the sky without any physical connection to the earth. Engineers had to overcome immense logistical challenges to install the heavy glass panels, relying on manual labor and specialized rigging equipment to position each piece while suspended over the abyss. This attraction exploits the primal fear of heights to create a highly addictive sensory experience that draws millions of international travelers every year. The absolute contrast between the solid mountain and the empty air highlights the psychological power of modern cliffside architecture. This same mastery of vertical stone walls is found in ancient structures built for isolation.
Number 3. Matira Monasteries. Ancient stone blocks perched on top of vertical sandstone pillars create a surreal landscape where religious sanctuaries appear to float completely detached from the valley floor. These historic monasteries were constructed centuries ago by monks seeking absolute isolation from invading forces, choosing the summits of sheer rock columns that rise over 1,000 feet into the Greek sky. The original construction required an incredible amount of human endurance, as every single piece of stone, wood, and mortar had to be hauled up of vertical cliffs using a complex system of ropes, nets, and wooden ladders. For generations, the only way to access these sky-high retreats was by being pulled up in a fragile rope net, a process that required absolute faith in the strength of the fibers and the monks operating the windlass above. Modern staircases have been carved into the rock faces to allow safe passage for tourists, but the original feeling of suspended isolation remains entirely intact. The vertical drop surrounding each monastery provides a natural defensive barrier that kept the inhabitants safe from worldly conflicts for hundreds of years. The architectural integration of human dwellings into the absolute peaks of unstable natural pillars remains a stunning testament to human willpower over hostile terrain. This ancient method of utilizing sheer vertical drops for defense matches the modern industrial use of narrow stone chasms.
A razor-thin trench cut directly through a massive limestone isthmus creates a sheer canyon of solid rock that connects two major bodies of water. This historic Greek canal features vertical stone walls that rise nearly 300 feet above the water level,
creating an incredibly tight passage that leaves large modern ships with only inches of clearance on either side. Workers excavated millions of cubic meters of stone over several decades, battling constant wall collapses and unstable geological strata to complete a dream that dated back to ancient Roman emperors. The sheer straightness of the stone cut amplifies the visual scale of the drop, creating a dramatic corridor where the sky is reduced to a narrow blue ribbon far above the masts of passing vessels. Bridges spanning the canal look like tiny threads connecting the two separated landmasses, offering pedestrians a terrifying view straight down into a deep turquoise water channel. The primary engineering challenge remains the constant threat of rock slides, as the vertical limestone walls are continuously eroded by the wake of passing ships and seismic activity, requiring frequent closures for maintenance. This brutal slicing of the landscape transformed maritime trade routes, forcing captains to navigate a dangerous geological trench with absolute precision. This relentless driving through solid stone to conquer geographic barriers reaches its absolute peak in a tunnel carved from the inside out.
Number 1. Guoliang Tunnel. Hand-carved stone tunnels hollowed out from the interior of a vertical cliff face represent the ultimate victory of human willpower over absolute geographic isolation. A small group of 13 local villagers with no engineering training or heavy machinery used primitive hammers, steel chisels, and homemade explosives to carve a 3/4-mile road directly through a solid rock precipice. The construction process took 5 years of continuous manual labor, during which workers hung from ropes over a 100-meter abyss to chip away at the mountain wall millimeter by millimeter. To provide light and a place to discard accumulated rock debris, the builders created dozens of massive open windows directly through the side of the cliff, framing terrifying views of the vertical drop below. The interior of the tunnel is rough and uneven, with low rock ceilings and jagged walls that bear the physical scars of the tools used to create it. This perilous mountain road was built out of desperation to connect an isolated village to the outside world, replacing a lethal pathway known as the Sky Ladder that had claimed countless lives over generations. Today, this crude but effective passage stands as a global monument to human defiance against impossible terrain, where a community chose to carve through a mountain rather than remain trapped by its vertical walls.
If you thought this was terrifying, you are not ready for what they found in the video on your screen. Click it right now. The truth is worse than you think.